Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. Today we're finally getting to some overdue propagations. I feel like I have enough room in my prop boxes to really just chop up some of these plants that I have been talking about for months now that really just need it. They need the chop, they need to get started over. And then I do have some propagations that are ready to leave water, so hopefully I'll have space for them in the prop boxes as well. I don't think I'll be able to get to everything, unfortunately. It's just, I have so many things that I need to chop up, but hopefully we'll be able to get to enough. We'll be able to get to enough things that I'll feel like I made progress on the propagation front. And you can't make progress unless you start chopping up some plants. So that's what we're gonna do today. I think it is about time for Nutty to take his afternoon nap. He looks a little sleepy, so I'm gonna let him go do that while we start with some propagations. I do have this prop box right here, which is pretty much empty. I do have a couple of Scindapsus Silver Lady nodes in here that are finally starting to grow leaves. And then I have a Palmstreet, and I don't know what the last one is. It's either a Palmstreet or some sort of Philodendron erubescens that's just been in here for a long time. But this is the perfect prop box in my eyes for nodes. And I have one plant that I really need to chop up some of the nodes. And that's gonna be my Scindapsus platinum. So let me go get that out of the Millsbo tall. Here it is, scraggly as ever. I just can't with this plant. I have let it go far too long. And it just needs a lot of TLC at this point. It's embarrassing, but it's full. I mean, it's a really full looking plant. So I wanna find at least one of the runners and just start chopping away at it. I know some of them are ending in leaves, but I'm gonna untangle this and see what we have. What we have to work with, I'm gonna have to put it down. It's just so tangled. There's so many. If this is all one vine, I'm gonna be a little upset. I don't think it is. There's gotta be at least two here. I should have gotten out measuring tape because this is so long. And I really got, oh no, here's the second one. Okay, we have two. We do actually have two. This one's not as long, so I might be able to get it completely untangled shortly. So yeah, this is the first one. I don't know what happened to the other one. Here it is. Oh my. There might be three here. There might actually be a total of three. I just gotta figure out where they end and where they begin. Oh, is there four? Oh my gosh. This is wild. We're still untangling. We're getting there. As Nutmeg is not napping, he's just running around in between all my plants. Please don't knock anything over, Nutty. That's all I ask. He's usually really careful, but you never know. Okay, here's one insane thing. This is the short one. So that was 2, 3, 4. Oh, I haven't fully. 4. I can't tell if there's 4 or 5. I think it's just 4, but this one is the longest. So it just goes on, and on. Okay, that's something. That is something. I think we should propagate it. Oh yeah, we should definitely propagate this one because it's broken. So that makes our decision easy. The ones with leaves, I might put in water if I don't have room, or I will put them in little cups in a prop box, because I've noticed that some of the nodes with just like a leaf, like a mid-cut node, they don't do as well in the little prop box that I showed off. They just kind of rot, the leaf, the donor leaf. So if I put it in a prop box with a bit more air, a bit more space, it works out a little better usually. So we will go for that. Now this being the top cut, I might just put in water. It's got a lot more room to do that. And then I'll just take these and cut them up. If there's extra space in between the nodes, which sometimes there is, I will cut them a little smaller, like this here. This here, this is the node, and then there's just so much extra space. And while it's not gonna be that much of a problem in the little prop box I'm using, once I put it into a cup, that's gonna become a problem because it won't fit. So when these things have way too long of internodal spacing, I'll just make them a bit smaller. It makes my life easier later. And then I don't have to find something that's gonna fit a super long node that I really don't want to cut at that point because it's already rooted and a little bit more vulnerable. So if I just do it while I'm already putting the plant into some shock, it's not gonna matter. So these are the ones with leaves. There's only a couple. There's not too many at least. This one, the leaf is really wonky anyway, so I might just rip that leaf off. And then this is where the plant broke. So I'm just gonna get rid of the area where it broke. It is really tight on the node here, but I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. And if it is, I've got plenty more nodes where that came from. I am just gonna cram as many nodes as possible into this little prop box because when they're this small, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. So I will keep doing that. Yeah, some of these here have the longest internodal spacing and it's just a little too crazy for me. So I will toss those, put them in a different pile because I don't want to get them mixed up with the actual nodes. That would be a tragedy. This one has a nice leaf on it, even though it's upside down. So that will probably go in water or a different prop box. I don't even want to know how many nodes I'm getting out of this. This is crazy. I definitely want to cut it to about here for now. So we will take the rest of this and separate it out into nodes. From that one vine, this is what I've got. I've not counted them. I don't know if I have room to cut the other vines, so I'm gonna hold off on that for now. And then I have 4 nodes with a leaf attached. So that's just a lot. But, you know, I gotta get this propagated eventually. I would feel so bad throwing this all out because Scindapsus grow really easily from a little node. I think they're one of the easiest plants to propagate, even though they are a bit slower. I just realized one of these has a little bit too long of stem. And I'm just going to arrange them on this so that they are spaced as evenly as I can and that they have the node part facing down. They do move a little bit, it's fine. They move when I move the tray, but once they start rooting, it'll be okay. And this has enough humidity that even if it's not facing fully down, it should be fine. That's the whole point of a prop box, is that you have a lot of humidity and it works out. So I do wish I had more of these clamshells, especially this size. I really like the size that I have right here, but I got these when I lived in Maryland and I don't think I can get this exact size anymore. I think it was like this boutique lettuce company that put their lettuce in this exact size clamshell. And so that's how I got a couple. But it's all right. I've cherished them ever since I've lived in Maryland and I've kept them pretty much clean and I've been using them ever since. So this is what the final product is gonna look like. I think that number of nodes fit in here perfectly. I could take out this Palmstreet if I really wanted to, but it's not grown so much that it's hitting the top, so I'm not going to bother for the moment. I might do it later. Just making some last minute adjustments. It never feels like it's fully done, but that is pretty much what I do for nodes. And I think we should check back in probably a month or two because it does take a while for these for these little Scindapsus nodes. They are very slow. Scindapsus are not for impatient people. They're not for people that like really fast growing plants. You just have to be patient with them. I like plants that grow slower, even though I'm not as patient in every aspect of my life. I really love Scindapsus, so I'm totally fine being patient. I just shove these under one of my cabinets and they grow. So that is what we're gonna do with the platinum. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the rest of the vines, but this is really good progress. And I do have another tray of carnival cuttings that are ready to come out. If I have a space to put about 30 carnival cuttings and get them out, then we can do more platinum. But until I figure out that situation, this is gonna have to do for now. I am very sorry to this Scindapsus. I have to wrap all of these vines all around again, get it all tangled up, because that's the only way it doesn't make too much of a mess in my cabinet. Just get that all wrapped around. Also, I have broken the vines a couple of times shutting the door of the cabinet, so running it around does help with that. In thinking about what I want to propagate next, I have a lot of options and I have almost too many options. It's a little overwhelming, but I do have some plants in water that are ready to come out of the water. So I figured we could do that first. I do have my salvaged Hoya nictine that I had to completely start over. I am very glad I was able to salvage this plant. I have these two pieces, and then I also have a single node cutting that I did put in moss already. These have been in water for months, which is why they have so many roots, and it's also why they're green, because all my water props are near a window, so the roots get some water, but that's, or some light. The roots get some light, but that's fine. I'm not really too worried about it. I did want to put them in a little cup, but these roots are really big. Ooh, I don't have a 3-inch pot that these would fit in. I could overpot them in a 4-inch, but that feels wrong. Hoya don't really like to be up potted that much. So if I have a 3-inch, I can put in a 4-inch. Then I can put these in a 3-inch, because I do think they're just too big for these prop cups that I have set up already. So I need to do some digging and find a Hoya that I can up pot really quickly, because I do have one 4-inch pot that's ready to go. And then we can go from there. Okay, I'm calling an audible here. I genuinely was struggling to find a 3-inch specifically that I wanted to take to a 4-inch. I had a lot that are in the prop cups that are ready to go up, but that just doesn't help me. So I remembered I have these hollow cups that my 3-inch clear pots fit into pretty nicely. So we're gonna do that for now until I get a nice decorative pot that I could fit in, or a better situation arises. Maybe it really likes being in moss, the roots grow really quickly, and we can up pot again. But until then, it's gonna go in here. I don't think it's gonna be the end of the world, to be fair. So I'm gonna start with this one because it has more roots, and I do like to put a layer. I feel like this is a little too much. I like to put a layer of leca at the bottom just to help with the drainage a little bit and for root growth. So I will put that in first. This is such an awkward stem length that it's gonna be just hanging out over the sides, which is not ideal, but can't really help that. I don't love that look, but it's fine. It'll grow into it, and then hopefully when I up pot to a 4-inch, it'll look better. I am gonna fill it in with some moss just for stability before I put in the other one with the more shallow roots. It has one long root, but everything else is pretty shallow, and it's gonna have to do the same thing, just hanging over the side. And then I'll just fill up the rest with moss. There's a little bit of perlite in here, but it's mostly moss. I don't worry about it too much anymore. I used to worry about the ratio, but now I don't. I don't have an extra bag of perlite right now either. I would love to have that, but it's not at the top of my priority list for the moment. So we're just gonna work with the moss that we have. Oh my gosh, keeps slipping. and hopefully fill it in so that it's not totally hanging out over the sides. Just want to get that in there as best as I can. It looks a little awkward, I will say. It does look a little awkward at the moment. I might have to use a prop pin if it doesn't want to stay upright, but I am holding it together at the moment, so we can't fully tell. Spilling a little bit of moss. I'm gonna have to vacuum later, but that's fine. I feel like I always have to vacuum in here. So that's kind of what we got. Let me put it, oh, it might look better once I throw it in here. What do we think? Does that look okay? I feel like it's gonna even out eventually. Might throw a little bit of moss on the top just to, oh, there's a little leca ball. We'll throw that in too. Just to fill it in. But it's not terrible. It kind of looks like it's trailing at the moment, which I don't hate. I do want this on a pole eventually. That's how it was growing before it was on a trellis. Not a pole, a trellis. But that's what it looks like. It looks really cute. I am excited to get it back into one of my cabinets. It was doing so well for so long and then it just wasn't. And I'm just very grateful I was able to salvage it in this way. And that frees up 2 of my water prop jars. I do have less because my husband has actually broken a couple over the past like 6 months. He's broken 2, which is a little depressing for me, but it's fine. I still have enough. And honestly, I have started to also just take random glass jars and use them because they're free and I don't have to go buy them. So it all works out. It all works out eventually. But this frees up some space. This can go in one of the cabinets wherever I find room. And hopefully it will just settle in to being in this pot. But it'll take some time. It always does when you repot something. Now for some Hoya that I'd really like to start over or chop up in any sort of way. I found a couple just really quickly. I might find some more after this, but unfortunately my Wilburgrave silver took a turn for the worse, and I would like to try and propagate this leaf while it's still with us. And then this was entirely my fault as a leaf falls off. I accidentally left this completely filled to the brim with water for several days. Normally I'm really good at remembering to dump out the water if I'm filling something up. It was so thirsty, I filled it up and then I left it there for a long time, and so it's just losing most of its leaves. This is the Sigillatus round form. I did this to myself. So I would like to try and remedy that as much as I can and take some cuttings wherever I can. Just gonna try and chop it back as far as possible, and then we'll see about chopping it further into nodes. Yeah, this isn't gonna be on a trellis anymore because I'm chopping off everything. So I just am taking it off of the trellis. Should have done that first before I got the scissors out. That's okay. I'm gonna chop it as far down as I can. So this one has a lot of nodes without leaves, but it should be fine. I have one here as well. And then I think there's one more vine growing out that I should be able to take. It has several nodes on it, but honestly, that's fine. And then we'll see what happens with the rest of this, but I'm not expecting anything crazy. Just toss that to the side. And for this one, I will take a couple nodes off. I am gonna see if I can salvage the bottom of the plant. So this is the bottom. This leaf is gone. Yeah, that leaf's gone. So I have one leaf here, one leaf here. Luckily, it's a cheap plant now. I am just really sad because I love Wilburgraves. I just don't know what happened other than probably underwatering. So we'll just have to leave that at that. For cuttings like these, there are a couple ways in which you can approach this kind of situation. You can leave it all like this, or you can cut it up further. All you need is one node and one leaf, typically, to have a plant to propagate. Hoyas, you technically can propagate without a leaf, but it's so difficult. And I was only successful at it one time out of the few times that I've tried, and it's so difficult. It takes so long, so much slower than skin diapsis. So I like to at least have a leaf, and I like for there to be no nodes after the leaf, like below it, because then they start growing from the bottom of the pot usually, and it's just really messy. But sometimes you can't help it, like with the Wilbergraves that I took, you just can't help it. But these I am going to separate. I think it will be better to separate them. So this one, so this I will just chop down here. I like to have it, the longer section of the stem, go after the node. It's easier to put in water. So I have longer sections of stem here. And if you do notice, let me put everything down, it is bleeding. That's just what I call it. It's bleeding. And this is not the best time to put it in the jar of water. You really want to wait a few hours for this to stop bleeding and start to harden off or callus before you put it in the water. So I'm just going to make a pile of these, and I'll put them on my kitchen counter because that's where I water propagate. It's very easy to just fill up the jars with water with the kitchen sink. So that's where I do all the water propagating. And whenever we have people over for like a party or something, I just move all the water props to a different room and then put them all back because we need the counter space. So all of these that are bleeding, I'm just making a pile. You can leave them for about a day, maybe a day and a half, and they'll be fine. If you leave them any longer, you're just really gonna start hurting your plant's chances of success because it's gonna start to go into shock. It's gonna get really thirsty. So I would leave these be for about a day, a few hours to a day, and then just throw them in the water. That's what I'm gonna do. And I think they should be fine. So I'm gonna pile up all the ones I've gathered. I've got these two. Oh, this one I still gotta chop up. This one, the Wilbergraves, gotta be careful with that because it's only got one leaf. And then, oh, there's a couple more. I don't have enough hands for these. This one I'm actually gonna leave as two because I don't think there's enough stem length there. So I'm gonna have these and one more. So out of just 3 vines on the Sigilladus round form, I was able to get a lot of cuttings, and I can hopefully make a fuller plant for the future, especially in case that other one doesn't make it, which I don't think it will. I think I rotted those roots so badly that I don't have a lot of faith in it, but at least these have a brighter future. And the Wilbergrave Silver, I'm giving that a 50-50 shot. I don't even know if the glass is half full on that one, but we're gonna try. We're at least gonna try. And I find water to be really great for starting out a prop, stabilizing it, and then moving it to moss once it has a little bit of roots established. Now I've let these go far too long, but once you start to see little root nubs, should take a week or two, then it's usually safe to move on to moss. I also have this fungi cutting I took. I think I did that on camera because the plant was broken and I had to, and it's been just starting. It doesn't really have root nubs yet, but I think I want to chop it again. I think I want to make it 2 cuttings. And this is just gonna be ridiculous and long, and I'm just gonna have to deal with that. But I do wanna chop this up and make another cutting out of it, so I will be doing that. And I'll just let this piece callus over. This one's gonna remain in the water jar. It's really cute, just one little leaf there. So this isn't bleeding the same way. It's not white, it's more of a yellow color because the stem is more woody. But I'm just gonna let it callus with the rest of them, and then it'll go in a water jar as well. It is unfortunate that it has such a long runner because that means it's usually pretty imbalanced. I have to find the right water jar for it to fit in. I like to find ones that have like a small, like this, a small opening up top and then more water in the bottom, because then it can more easily balance in the jar. So I have 2 sizes of this, and then I have a couple others that have a smaller mouth, I guess, on the top and are wider in the bottom. That's really what I look for, and I'm willing to pay for those because they're so much easier. This is something that was just, I want to say it was a jar of pickled ginger or something like that. And it's fine, but there's not as much stability with the water propagations in there. This plant is way overdue to be taken out of water, but this is just a good example. I mean, it's free, so you can't really complain too much, but that is why I'm willing to pay for a better jar. I feel like that's probably just something I like to have. I'm sure most people aren't that picky. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna be super picky, but I just think it's a little plus to have a jar that really works for propagating a plant. It's really satisfying, if you know what I mean. I forgot to mention this earlier, but the same that I said about the Hoyas can be said about these Scindapsus too. It is better, if you can, to let them callus over a bit before putting them in water or moss or whatever. I don't really worry too much with nodes, especially when I had so many of these nodes, but it's been about 30 minutes actually since I cut these, and they're already starting to look better. They're looking more dried out. So I would feel a lot better about putting these in moss or water at this point. I think I might try to put a couple of these in moss. I don't know. I don't like doing Scindapsus in water as much. I find it's not as effective. I just like to put them, they just take so long that I'd rather just put them in moss to begin with. And they really like the prop box situations, I have found. So you just gotta kind of experiment with your plants and what genus likes what. So I think I'm gonna try to put those in moss, even if it's not in that other kind of prop box that I put all the nodes in. Hopefully it'll all work out. Okay, I got a few jars out just because I want to get this done now while I'm here, while I'm doing it. And I have 3 jars, but or 3 little prop cups, but I do have 4 of these cuttings. And one thing I did with all of my variegated heartleaf is I would put 2 or 3 in a cup while they weren't rooted. And it's much easier to do with Scindapsus. This one needs more moss because they have thicker roots and they don't have tertiary roots as easily. So they'll just put out a really nice, thick, juicy first root, and it's very easy to separate. But you have to get the timing right, because if you let it go too long, it will be difficult to separate, and especially with philodendron, Hoya, things like that. Scindapsus is really easy to just put a couple in here and separate out later. So I might actually, well, no, I have 3 out, so I'll do 1 with 2, and the others will have 1 each. And this is why it's imperative to cut it right. So this is almost too tall. I've got to put some extra moss. The humidity will help it root. It will root eventually, but if you can get the node in the moss, that is ideal. This is the top cut, so it should start rooting and growing the fastest, which I'm looking forward to. It's already got a leaf that's ready to unfurl, and then it'll hopefully keep growing. So this is what all of these look like. They'll probably take a month or 2 as well to get going, so we can do an update video then about how all of these props are doing. Hopefully I will keep up with them, because I'm not always the best about keeping up with my propagations, but these will take a while, so that won't be a worry. It's just kind of the Hoyas. If they're still in water in 2 months, then I'm cooked. Life got way too stressful, and I was just like, they're fine in water. That's also why I like propagating in water when I can, because it has the lowest amount of rot, and plants can just live in water. They can. The water props have no fertilizer, nothing special, just water, and they do fine. They really do fine. I've even had pothos living in water for years. They do just fine. I have an aglaonema, one of the only aglaonema I have in my collection that has lived in water for a year now, and it's doing great. It's the only way I can keep it happy. So if life gets too crazy, then I know that all the water props are probably just fine. And that's also another reason why I like to do it, because you can forget about it, you can be lazy about it, life can get in the way, and those water propagations are still gonna be doing just fine. So that's it for today's video. I woke up Nutmeg from his nap briefly, but he'll forgive me because he's the best boy ever. Right before I started, he was actually just following me around the house nonstop, so I don't think he's gonna complain too much, despite his grumpy little face. Sometimes he has a little bit of RBF, but he doesn't really mean it. I don't think he ever really means it. But I think it's a good start. I think it's a good start to the propagations. I didn't get as much done as I wanted to, but I'm also really indecisive sometimes about the plants that I want to chop up. I think it'll be okay. It's a good start. It is a start at least, and we can do an update, like I said, in a month or two and see how everything is doing. And I feel really good that finally, after what feels like years, I have started to propagate the Scindapsus platinum, because that plant has the potential to be as beautiful as my other climbing Scindapsus. It really does, and it grows so much faster than the rest of them. So I know it could just be to the ceiling by now, but I just didn't keep up with it, and that's why you should keep up with your climbing plants. But if you like this video, make sure to give Nutmeg and I here a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Good boy.